Okay.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of Sports Therapy Shorts, our new podcast, where we actually get to meet our regional reps and get to know a little bit more about them. So today we have a special guest in with us who is a regional rep down south. And he is going to be talking to us today about integrating sports therapy and Pilates. Which is one of his special interests. So Alex is a sports therapist, sports massage therapist, and a Pilates instructor. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Alex.
Cool. Thank you very much, Scott. Okay, good afternoon and welcome to everyone who's watching this. If you can just bear me 2 seconds, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little presentation I've made. There we are. Okay, so just a little bit about me first. As Scott mentioned, my name is Alex Morre. I'm based down here in Poole, Dorset. I am a sports therapist, a massage therapist, and a Pilates instructor. And I'm currently training to be a movement therapist. So I've been in the industry since about 2011. And at that time, I was training to be a sports massage therapist and also a biomechanics coach with a company called Intelligent Training Systems. So I believe are now called Biomechanics Education. And at the time, as I was learning that, I was working in one of the local gyms here as a fitness instructor to just build up experience just while I was building up my courses and stuff. So I qualified in that in sports massage and biomechanics in about the end of 2011. And I went on to do a further advanced, it was called an advanced biomechanics diploma then in 2012. And along with that, I became a Pilates instructor at the same time, about 2012. 2014, the health club I was working at closed down. So I started up Pilates on my own. 2015, I went and became a Body Master Method trainer. My apologies there, just got an email through. And with John Gibbons, so I became a Body Master Method practitioner with John Gibbons, who I know most of our members will probably know. And then I also became trained in the equipment side of Pilates with Pilates therapy in 2016. So that's a bit about me and that's a bit about my qualifications. And what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to talk about how I integrate sports therapy into Pilates classes and some of the kind of challenges I came up with initially and how I got over them. Okay.
Sounds good.
So there we are, integrating sports therapy into Pilates classes. So before we begin, okay, here's some stuff you might not know. Okay, so like sports therapy, Pilates is an unregulated industry. So this means that anyone can call themselves, a bit like sports therapy, anyone can call themselves a Pilates instructor. And there's no minimum standards to become a Pilates teacher or instructor. So this is why we have a huge variety of courses and a huge variety of instructors. You can become qualified, I think now in just one day, or the courses vary to about, I think there's some that are even a year and 18 months and have quite a high number of hours that you need to do to become qualified. And obviously you can imagine that, it's like sports therapy, you can do a very short course or you can do a degree level course. Obviously, I don't think there's a degree level course in Pilates though. So there is some positives to this. Okay, so there are some positives to this. And for people like me, actually, this is quite a positive thing because it allows me quite a lot of freedom to integrate a lot of other skills into my classes. Okay, so I can integrate a lot of the sports therapy stuff in. So for example, I'm doing the movement therapy diploma with movement therapy education at the moment. And the more I worked through that, the more of that stuff I could add in. So this week I was looking at the neurological side of things, and there were some quite nice things there that I could just start to slowly integrate to the classes. And that might not be the case if it was a bit more restricted. However, though, there are obviously some negatives to this as well. We mentioned about the huge range of courses out there. One of them, the main thing for me, is that people get confused over Pilates. Okay, so the general public, even I used to get confused before I was a teacher. And they get confused over what class to go to suit their needs. Because if you're just a member of the public, it all looks the same. They're all called Pilates classes, and there's no difference between the title, and there's no difference between what the instructor is qualified in, if that makes sense. So a classic example is someone who suffers with back pain. They get recommended to go to Pilates by their GP, and they have a look around and they find a few different Pilates classes. What they probably won't know if they don't research too much into it is that one might be run by the local fitness instructor, one might be run by a practitioner like a physiotherapist, and I don't know, one might be run by, say, a dance teacher, for example. Now, all those classes are good, okay, and they all suit a certain type of person. However, if they're all called Pilates classes, that person with back pain might end up going to a fitness one, and it might become more of a workout rather than a clinical side of things. So that's where there's a slight negative about this industry.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah, it's something
I didn't realize all that myself, to be fair. So no, that's really interesting to kind of
I don't
know.
think people do, to be honest. I think it's well, I didn't realize this until I became a teacher, and it's not as bad as it sounds. If that makes sense. I think if there was just a bit more, if we just had a bit more knowledge of, or getting people into the right classes that are suitable for them, I think that's the key. And like I say, around this area, I know a lot of instructors, and there's no real bad instructors. It's just about picking the right class, the right instructor for the right person.
That goes back to the marketing side that we've talked about many, many times,
Yeah.
Marketing to the right people.
That's exactly it. Yeah, that is it. It's difficult as well. It is a bit of a challenge, but it's also a challenge for instructors as well, because this is exactly what I found myself is I found I was a bit confused what course to go to, because I thought they would all make this to be like sports therapy. They would all make me a Pilates instructor.
Yeah.
And as you're going to find out in a minute, that's not okay. Is that all making sense so far?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. And you can probably see here, Scott, there's some kind of parallels to sports therapy, really.
Yeah, massively. It echoes a lot of what we're kind of discussing pretty much every day at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's move on. I've just pressed the wrong button again. Here we are. So this was my initial challenges when I first started up. Okay, so the initial training wasn't what I was expecting rather. So I was encouraged to become qualified as a Pilates instructor by one of my tutors on the biomechanics course, I think it was. And they thought it would integrate quite nicely into the work I was doing, and which they were right. Because I think they had only seen Pilates from a kind of clinical side of thing, and if you look at it from a clinical side of thing, it does absolutely integrate nicely. However, I ended up, because I was working at a company at the time who sent you on quite a lot of courses, but they were more veering towards the fitness side of things and getting their classes running a gym with high amounts of people. So I obviously wanted to go down the rehab and the clinical side of things for Pilates. Unfortunately, the course I went on was more based around the health club, the fitness side of things. So what I only learned on the course really was the classical, which I don't use very much of now, the classical Pilates exercises. And the problem with this is it's fine. If I wanted to work in the gym, it would have been okay. but it didn't give you any kind of clinical reasoning, when you would do this exercise with someone, when you wouldn't do that exercise with someone. And so it was kind of not really what I was after. All right, so it was a bit tricky to begin. But again, I'd imagine that's quite parallel with sports therapy, depending on where you go, of course. So I started up, and it was difficult to integrate the skills of sports therapy because it was always two different things. And obviously, I hadn't been long qualified in biomechanics and sports massage, so it was. I think probably at the time I was probably trying to do too much too soon. But one of the biggest things I was always, and it took a long time to get out of this habit, was I was always trying to find someone or some way that I could learn how to integrate sports therapy and Pilates. And after a few years, I probably only realized this now. It was something I actually had to do myself. And I think this is the case for most instructors. You have to kind of do it yourself. Is that all making sense so far?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, initially I was put off doing Pilates when I did my course, and I didn't do it for I didn't teach a class for about a year, 6 months, a year. And it only came around by chance. I started teaching a class. And at the time, like I said, I was working in a health club. And one day the instructor was ill. My friend who's a Pilates instructor, she wasn't very well. And I tried my best to find cover, and I couldn't find any. And unfortunately, everyone knew I was a qualified Pilates instructor. So the only person who was left to do the class was me. And this is after about 6 months, a year of kind of not really visioning myself as a Pilates instructor and not really enjoying it. But luckily, it actually went quite well. And
sometimes it's the best way, isn't it? Deep end, straight in. You can't think about it. You just have to get on with it.
Well, this is it. And actually what you'll see in a moment is you'll see that's exactly what happened the whole way up until now, because you're thinking about it too much. And sometimes just getting into it, just getting thrown in and doing it. And it probably was the best thing then, because it got the ball rolling. And that's what happened. So yeah, when I started doing Pilates classes just to build experience, as we're going to see in this next slide here. So the ways I had to work around, kind of not having it, as more flats coming through. The way I had to work around this was to actually start building up and teaching classes myself. Just getting used to actually being there, getting used to having things that would be thrown at you in a class, like things that would throw up in a class, which you can't ever really learn from a book. So you get used to adapting and changing things quickly and changing things to different people.
That around kind of, sorry to interrupt there.
No, of course.
Kind of like, obviously you get different peoples of different levels within classes.
This is it. Yeah, this is it exactly. You might get, at the time I was working in different health clubs. Now I was freelancing in different health clubs, and and especially in health clubs, it's a bit of a nightmare because they're so big and there's so many people in there. But you might get, I don't know, you give out an exercise and it might, let's keep it really basic, it hurts someone's back. So then you've got to learn and adapt, try and find a different way where it doesn't hurt them. And that experience is, again, you'll never learn that on any course really. So that's, like you said, it's just better to get out. And
I suppose that's where the actual sports therapy knowledge that you do have actually integrates quite nicely into that, though.
This is it, yeah. This is it. And at the time,
a better understanding.
Absolutely. Well, at the time, I was so focused on building the classes. I hadn't really done much sports therapy. I hadn't really used the massage or the biomechanics that much. So I was just kind of not winging it to an extent, but just learning to adapt. But as time went on and I did more sports therapy, you're absolutely right. It's having that knowledge on the side made it easier, basically, made it easier to adapt. One of the things I did notice was actually, I was so focused on being really specific, getting everyone doing exactly the right exercise setting, getting so many variables, because I wanted it to be really unique. And one thing I realized, and I didn't link it at the time, was actually we just let people move pain-free. If the classes were a bit social and a bit fun, that was just as important as the exercises being really specific to them.
Yeah, rather than kind of making it very, you need to nail your kind of technique down to a fine tee. Just let people enjoy and kind of just move, like you just said there. Yeah.
Well, this is it, and especially with the way the stuff's going now, is we're starting to really realize there isn't a one size fit, and this was what some of the Pilates I kind of read in the books and stuff. It was very technical and very about alignment and stuff, but we know there's so much variability within people and within movements. It's so hard to get that. I don't think you can ever design a technique which is going to make it really specific to everyone. And I think it's a more specific way is making sure there's movements that are pain-free. So that's what I found really. And it wasn't until about 3 or 4 years later when I started doing a movement therapy diploma and we got into the pain science side of things, that actually that's what they've been kind of saying in there. And those other factors being social and fun were just important. So I started integrating the rules of doing what feels good and modifying what doesn't feel good, and also giving people a bit of what we want and a bit of what they need, because sometimes it's like doing your subjective assessments in your sports therapy.
Yeah.
The client always tells you what they want, even though they don't directly say it. You can get all that information from the case history. They might just need a few ideas to get it rolling, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's how it went really. So the first couple of years, I was just teaching classes, building up experiences, and that was all fine. But it got on to about 2017, I guess, and in those 3 years, I was always looking for that one course or for the next course and thinking you have to learn more skills and learn more skills and learn more skills to become better. And I just remember in the summer of 2017, I just thought I'm going to go right back and practice everything I'd already learned. So everything at the biomechanics diploma, everything at the John Gibbons course and the sports massage. And I just started practicing it. And practicing it and getting good at the screens. And this is when I started doing the equipment in Pilates, like the reformers and the Cadillacs and stuff like that. And I just started getting creative and then thinking, how could I link that screen or what that person needs from those screens into a class? So what I started doing is I started getting people in before they started the class. They had a one-to-one assessment. You would use those clinical screening skills, I guess, and you'd work out what a person needs. And then I'd think, right, how can we integrate this into the class? And obviously it doesn't make it specific, but the chances are someone needs that. It's very, very rare it's going to do any harm to anyone else in the class to do that move as well. So, say someone has a proximal hamstring tendinopathy, and they need to do an isometric move for their hamstrings. Not everyone in that class will have a proximal hamstring tendinopathy, but it's very unlikely they won't get any benefit from doing isometrics for hamstrings. And that's how it built up. And that's how I kind of really built the classes. And the more I did, the more I practiced and practiced and practiced those clinical skills, the more it just naturally came and the more the ideas came in my head.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a real difference, really. So I'm just going to move on to this next screen. And I've kind of gone into this screen already a little bit. So this is when I started to integrate sports therapy. That was the main thing, that top point. So to accept that the only way to do this would have to be unique to me. Because, I did go on some courses in the end, which kind of, I tried to learn off other people how to integrate both. And it was, great to learn ideas and great to share ideas with people. But ultimately, I don't think it's something you can ever be taught from someone else wholly. I think it's something you just pick up on your own.
You can learn the basics, but you have to put your own stamp and feed it into your own practice and your own way of working.
Exactly.
Same as kind of any other sports therapy technique. People get taught a massage technique. Doesn't mean to say, we're not going to have 100 people doing the same massage technique. I do things, and I'm sure, we could both go on the same course, and then 5 years down the line, we'd probably both do things very differently. And I think that's a good thing, having it unique to you.
Definitely. And I think the way of learning off, what I tried to change then, instead of trying to be taught how to link both and integrate both, I didn't do that. I went on these courses and shadowed people, and I learned what they did, and I kind of borrowed their ideas or shared ideas of them, and then just kind of did it that way. So kind of sharing ideas with people was better because it made me think. The problem is, if someone's teaching you how to link it and how to integrate it, and you're just trying to do the way they're teaching you, you're almost learning their way, which is great because they're probably really good and they're really successful, but it might not be, it won't be unique to, it wasn't unique to myself. And I think that's quite tricky. And that's probably one of the things, from doing CPD courses now, my mindset's really changed. And when I do an ACPD course now, it's not to, obviously there's some exceptions, but it's not to try and learn a new skill. It's trying to learn a new concept and then do it in my own way, if that makes sense. And that's been a lot more successful than following like Rock Tape say a really good thing. We don't teach concepts. They do teach concepts. They don't teach recipes. They teach concepts. And I think that once I started getting that, I think it really started coming together. But like I say, so once I started practicing and getting confidence with previous sports therapy stuff, it really started to snowball, and they just started to integrate naturally, without even knowing it. So this is some ideas people can use if they are looking to bring sports therapy into a kind of Pilates class. And like I say, finding your unique way is the real key. Okay, so you can learn lots, but delivering it in your unique way is quite key, because then you're getting your understanding out. And like I found, actually, that understanding wasn't, or that unique way wasn't the way it was forever. It slowly, gradually improved and progressed on over the years. So, it doesn't matter so much. I don't think it's ever going to be as black and white as you learn it and that's it. You kind of adapt and you adjust to the latest research and the latest skills. Like I say, getting used to teaching classes is really key. More often than not, and I think I did this to begin, I kind of held back from doing classes because I thought I wasn't quite there, I'm not quite good enough yet. But actually, there's no course you can go on which can teach you how to take a class, not how to take a class, sorry, but giving you the experience of being in a class and having things.
Yeah, there's no substitute, is there, for actually doing the real life work?
That's
it. You can sit in a classroom or you can read a book as much as you want, but until you actually start doing it and gain the first-hand confidence of dealing with different people and different movements and different conditions, it's you're never going to have that from a classroom situation.
That's it. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's why I think courses which get you to log your hours and do quite a big hour logs are probably more effective, or I found more effective. So I remember my first Pilates course back in 2011, which was like an 8-week course or a 16-week course, whatever it was. I think you had to do like 50 hours of go into a class and then only 10 hours of teaching. And it's good to go to classes. It's good to go to different classes and different people, and that's fine. But 10 hours wasn't enough, because I teach 20 classes a week now, 23. I can't remember when it is. 23 mat classes a week, and I've been doing that for about 6 years now. And obviously, it adds up. It's a big number. But and that's what made my classes what they are now. It's not, because it's that experience and just tweaking things, and it's just experience basically. But yeah, the sports therapy assessment was key. Bringing that in was really key, because then you can be really specific with what you're working with. If you're just in a class, if you're just in a small group class, you're guessing. And half the time, the more you do sports therapy, the better and stronger your guesses are, but you are still guessing. If you get people in for that assessment before, you can be really specific with what they need, work out what they want as well, and then you can integrate that into the class. And like I say, a class isn't a one-to-one thing. So in a class now, I kind of put aspects of everyone who's in that class, aspects they all need. Like I say, not everyone will need exercises for a hamstring tendinopathy, but it's probably not going to do people any harm. It'll still give them a good workout.
You never know. There might be one person in that class who struggles to do it, and you find out, that they actually do need to do it.
Absolutely.
And they might not have picked up on it. It could be anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And they might not have the they might not have the endurance for strength, but they just haven't got the symptoms at the moment. Yeah. So it's just things like that, really. So yeah, just working how you can add their results into the classes. So when you get people in for your sports therapy, and you give them exercises at the end, which I'm sure all the sports therapists do. It's just working out how can that go into a class. And this is a good point at the end I put here, hopefully. How many times do we hear now the screen becomes the exercise?
Yep.
So we hear that quite a lot. So why can't we put the screens into Pilates, or make the screens exercises to go into the Pilates classes? Because then they become exercises, but also you can actually almost screen people as you're doing the class. And that's quite good then, because when you screen people and they're doing it on their own, they can kind of pick up on things. And sometimes people don't tell us everything in a one-to-one session because they forget or they just don't remember it. But by doing a screen, it might they come in with a stiff neck one day, for example. The screens really help, because you can make them exercises, but you can also pick up on, give people a bit more potential reasoning why they might have something. Is that all making sense?
No, that's brilliant.
Cool.
It's been very informative. Somebody who's been interested for a number of years of looking towards doing it, but just put it off. This has actually been something very, very good. Go. So I've got a couple of questions and stuff for you.
Yeah. Yep.
So you spoke there about kind of, you did classical Pilates and whatever. So for kind of the layperson like me, what are the kind of different types of Pilates? Or ones that would be beneficial to sports therapists or sports massage therapists? What would you say would be the most beneficial?
I don't really think anymore there is specific types of Pilates, if that makes sense. I think more it's now about matching people up to the right classes. Because with this Pilates, I mean, I don't know how many people do, if people do Pilates the way that Joseph Pilates meant to do his classes back in the day. Like I've always said that I've never really done the exercises he's done, but what I like about his Pilates is the concepts he brought in. So it wasn't just exercises, he brought all his Pilates principles in. So it wasn't just a movement class, you had all these other principles like breathing techniques and stuff like that. That's what I always liked about it. I mean, I don't know how many people in this country do proper, I don't even know if people know what, I don't know what Joseph Pilates classical Pilates was. I've seen a couple of YouTube videos.
I just remember shopping channels.
Right.
That's all I remember. I just remember seeing Joseph Pilates. That's how I first came about. I was probably about 18.
Okay.
And I just remember seeing this old guy on a shopping channel,
right.
Bored, I'm 18, I come in, from a night out, lots to watch, nothing to watch, shopping channels flicking through, and there was this crazy old guy moving around as if he was like 15 years old, and I think it was actually, it was one of is it the Reformer?
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I first came across it, and then kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many variables of it now, and it's because like I say, because it's all unregulated, it's all kind of been adapted and changed over the years. I'm not saying what he did wasn't that good, because I know it was obviously quite well taken up and quite well respected. But I think there's so many variables now that it's very difficult to know to put even types of Pilates anymore. All I've ever seen of his stuff is there's a few clips on YouTube of Joseph Pilates classical stuff, and if I'm right in thinking that, I think most of his clients were professional ballet dancers and professional gymnasts. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I might be wrong. What we've got to remember is most people, I've never had anyone who's come to me because they want to do a Pilates class, so to speak. They do want to do a Pilates class, but their reason for coming, their reason for coming isn't because they want to do what Joseph Pilates is. Most of the time, their reasons for coming is they're in some sort of discomfort or some sort of pain. They're looking to introduce it into like a rehab program. They're looking to improve performance, or they just want to have a workout and have something to do. And that's where I was going back to, is about picking the right people. Because someone, an athlete who wanted to improve performance, you probably wouldn't send them to a class in the local gym or the local health club, because they'd probably need a reformer or equipment class if they were quite a good level of athlete. And a bit like a clinical person who's got back pain, you probably wouldn't send them to a gym, because obviously the numbers are quite big and it's more geared towards, I mean, we're only generalizing things, but it's more geared towards the fitness side of things, being taught by fitness instructors. So yeah, I mean, this is the problem. This is why it's all called Pilates, which isn't an issue so much. But like I say, the main thing is finding the right class for the right person.
That kind of answers what was going to be one
okay.
of my questions. So it's actually answered most of my questions there, to be honest. So what's the differences for different populations? And you've pretty much answered that right there. But so if we kind of think back to like the athletes kind of thing. So let's say because a lot of stuff's online now, a lot of people work for football clubs, rugby clubs and stuff like that, who aren't doing any face-to-face stuff.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are kind of moving things to an online thing, which I imagine for you, it's perfect. I imagine.
It's interesting actually, because before I came on today, I was listening to the Sports Therapy podcast the other week with Liz Bailey. Is it Liz Bailey?
Yes.
The dancer lady, and it was really good, because it was everything I agree with, and I kind of she was saying she prefers much doing face-to-face assessments, but the virtual stuff works. For me, it only works in certain sectors. So this is a bit of an interesting story, because this is how I found out, going away from things a little bit. This is how I found, this is one moment where it all clicked. All the sports therapy and the Pilates clicked. So about 3 years ago, this lady rang me up, and her daughter was quite a high-level dancer. And I wasn't going to see her, because I'm not a dancer, and I had no real experience working with dancers. But she just wanted to see someone and have a different idea. So I thought, well, I'll see her. I'll see if there's anything I can put, and then I'll find her someone good to go to. And this is after that summer of just doing all those sports therapy, like all those bit of practices for the sports therapy stuff I'd done before. And what happened, I remember it was a Friday evening. It was really close to the end of the year. It's Christmas time, I think. And it all just fell together. It all just came into place, and it was almost very natural. So, and that's when it all kind of changed, because I hadn't done any practice or any kind of practice for this particular person. But everything I started saying and seeing in her started clicking. And that's how the sports therapy and Pilates link together. Anyway, so going on to I kind of drifted it off a bit. It's coming back to this point. It's really hard when I'm in a mat class with mat people. Online's really, really easy. The barriers are a lot less. It's not the same because, as we spoke about at the start, a lot of one aspect, not all of them, but one aspect is the social side and seeing people and making it enjoyable. And they can still do that to an extent, but people like proper interaction. And it is quite easy to do mat classes online because you don't need any equipment, and the technology is quite good, and it's not been as bad. I kind of agree with Liz, and I know she was referring to physio. It's not quite the same as being there hands-on because you just can't do that. It's just those little things you can't do. So if someone's doing something they could do better, maybe in pre-COVID times, you could just put your hand on them and say, keep pelvis still and just move your ribs. Now you've got to try and describe everything. So it's very descriptive. And if you're a bit like me and you find you work better when people I don't know what learning terms are, people put their hands on, it's a lot easier. So it's quite hard in that way. It's a bit tricky in that way. The tricky thing has been with the dancers, okay, that population, because a lot of them are hypermobile and a lot of them need the equipment to help build that endurance and kind of build that strength. And they need that proprioception and the feedback. I'm not an expert in hypermobility, but I found just doing mat classes with hypermobile people is quite, especially dancers, top level ones, is very tricky because they need that.
Is it just not challenging enough?
It's just not challenging enough, and they just haven't got any of that feedback that the machines give you. So it's all quite open chained. And with hypermobile people, I've always come to learn that closed chains are a lot better.
Okay.
So that's very tricky. I think if they had an injury, it might not be so bad, and you'll rehab an injury, it might be easier. But when it's just purely for the conditioning side, it's a real challenge.
That's been good. It's been interesting.
Excellent.
If people want to know a little bit more about you, get in touch with you. There's a couple of things on screen now. So Pilates Performance Therapy, which is your Facebook page, and your email address is right there. Is there any other ways people can contact you?
Nothing like that. You can obviously find me on Facebook as well. So if anyone wants to add me on Facebook, my name's Alex Morre. But yeah, always feel free to message me if you've got any questions or anything like that, or even if you've got different, the ones I want are the ones people who've got different viewpoints, who may have something that challenges what I say, because I found the best way of learning the last couple of years, and this is something I've really picked up from doing the movement therapy diploma, is that it's always good to challenge your ideas and be proved wrong almost.
Well, we are hoping to keep the discussion going on Facebook and Instagram and stuff. So when this is posted up, we're going to follow it up with a couple of little bits and keep the discussion going. So, Alex, I want to say thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
So for anybody else listening or who is watching, if you want to find out more about the Sports Therapy Association, here's some of the places where you can find us. So you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have a YouTube channel, and you can also find us at the sta.co.uk. And if anybody wants to contact me, I'm Scott, and you can contact me, Scott at the STA, or you can find me on the Sports Therapy Association Facebook pages. So thank you very much. It's been a very enlightening session, really. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Until next time.
Cool. Thank you.